Okay, so we just need to add a little bit of spacing here. This is going to be in between this text and these three images. If we look at our other one, we see that there's quite a bit of space here, nearly 100 pixels it looks like, or even 200. So let's go back into brackets, and we're going to add this to our featured content. So go to featured content. Let's add a padding to the bottom here, or rather, nope, sorry, a padding to the top here. And let's start with 100 pixels, and let's see how that looks. And we need to be, okay, there we go. So we have a nice spacing there. We have our three sections. We can change the text here so they're not the same. It doesn't really matter. Let's just go ahead and do that really quickly for the sake of making it look different. We have mobile first. Let's do HTML5 and CSS3. And then for the last one, let's just do socially social. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so let's keep moving on. Now we need to move on to the next section, which is going to be a big, looks like a 2-column section here where we have almost a duplicate below it. We just have two different color backgrounds here. This is a gray background. And in this lecture, you will find the download for this phone, this iPhone. So go ahead and make sure that you add that to the images folder that we've continuously added to. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to add this to our awesome landing page. So back into brackets and down to the next section. And that next section is going to be below the featured section. Let's go ahead and find that. So we have our featured content, and below that we have our featured section. So let's mark this with a comment so we know that this is the end of our featured section. And let's go ahead and create a very new section. Let's call this div, and we're going to give this an ID, and we'll call this, because this is going to be our first showcase, let's do this showcase 1 container. And we can go ahead and close that off. Very good. Now we're going to have quite a few different things within this showcase container. Now let's go ahead and give this another div ID, or rather a div class, because we're going to use this for our second one. So let's make this a div class, and let's call this just showcase, which is a little more generic. And we're going to close that one off as well. Let's give that a tab. And now we're going to create a new div class called column. Oops, let's make sure we have this. And we're going to call this col2, very similar to a column 3, but we want this just to have 2 columns. So within our first one, we're going to have our image. So let's go ahead and grab that really quickly. And this is going to be called, I believe it's Apple. So let's just go ahead and insert this, and we do that by selecting our image source. Let's go to our images folder here, and there it is, the first one, apple.png. So remember, make sure that you've downloaded this one from this lecture's resources. There we go. And we're going to actually do that again. So we're going to create another div. And we're just going to duplicate this one, of course, and this is going to be another div class, and this will be another column 2. And within this one, we're going to have a little bit of text here. So let's go ahead and add, let's go figure out what the text is that we need to copy. Yes, it even looks good on an iPhone. So let's grab this first. This is going to go in what appears to be an H1 tag. So let's create an H1 tag for that one. So we have our content, and within our content we have an H1. So let's create H1, paste that in there, and just below that we're going to create a P tag. So let's do P, and let's grab the lorem ipsum that we have in, oh, that's not lorem ipsum, we have some real text. Let's take that text and paste it in, and then we'll come back and we'll worry about styling after. So there we go. Control V and save. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what this looks like. There we go. Obviously not looking good. We have our massive iPhone over here. We have our H1 and our P tags here, but they are not styled at all how we want them. So let's begin working on that now. And we're going to make a few more changes within our index.html, specifically to our H1 and our P, so that we can actually style those. So going back to that, let's go into our image first, and we're going to actually give this a class. So our image source, let's select right after our image and give this a class. And let's call this showcase one picture, or you can name an image or whatever you want. Now below that we have our second column 2. Let's give this h1 a class as well, and this one's going to have a class of, let's just call it section title. Okay, there we go. And let's go ahead. That looks fine to me. We should probably give the p a class as well. So let's give our p tag a class, and we're just going to call this, let's call it section, let's call this left. Just making sure that that's something I can remember. Okay, perfect. So we'll go ahead and save that, and we'll go into our style.css so we can begin adding the styles that we need. And we're going to start with our showcase class. So let's think about what our showcase is, right? It's the div that encompasses all of this information, and we want this to maintain the same width as the rest of the page, or rather the section above, and we've been using the width of 80%. So we want the content within this to be 80%. We also want to make sure that the content is centered, so we're going to give it a margin of auto. All right, and that works pretty good. Now let's go ahead and we'll finish that one off. Let's move on. Let's do the showcase one container, I believe it's called. Let me go back. So we have our showcase one container. Let's give that some styles as well. So that is a ID. Let me go back really quickly one more time. We have to make sure that we know if they're an ID or if they're a class. This one is indeed an ID. Oh, and the class showcase was inside that. So let's do the actual ID. This should probably be above this because it comes before it in the actual index.html. So let's do the showcase one container, and this is what's really going to contain everything, including the showcase. And let's go curly brackets, and let's begin adding some styles here. Specifically, we want a little bit of space from the top, so let's give this a padding at the top, and let's try 60 pixels. Very good. Okay, now let's go ahead and let's do a background color. We want that bluish background color for the entire section. And that is actually, I have it written down right here. Let me see. So let's do pound F6 F8 FA. So pretty easy to remember. Let's give this a width of 100% this time. So 100%. There we go. And let's also make sure that we select clear both. All right, there. So we should have our showcase one container. We have the showcase itself. Now let's keep moving on and check out what else we need to edit. More specifically, we need to make sure we're adding a class to our showcase one pick. Okay, so other than that, we probably just need to add a width to that. So let's go to our showcase one pick, and let's just give that a width. If you recall, in the last video we needed to give that a width of 100%. Let's save this. Let's go take a look really quickly. Okay, so it's taking up 100% of its parent. So that's why it looks like that. Don't worry, we will fix that in just a moment. Let's go back into brackets really quickly. And of course, if we look at our index.html, we've created these column 2s, but we haven't created any styles for them. So that's going to be really important. Let's go back up above our showcase one container, and let's actually create our column 2. So let's do call to class, curly brackets, and let's go ahead and we're going to float this like column 3 to the left. And as opposed to giving this a width of 33 or 31 or 32, we're going to give this a width because it's 2. We're going to do 48%. And what that's going to do is that's going to give us a little bit of room to add padding there. So we'll do a width of 48%. We'll save that. Now let's go take a look. That should resolve. There we go. So now we have part of this resolved. We have the left side and the right side. So we have the different sides. Now we'll notice that the background here is not running all the way down to the bottom. The phone itself is the correct size, and the styles over here on the right side are not correct. Don't worry, we'll fix those right now.